Chapter 2081. Recently, Tang Guo was a little busy because Li Fan had already started to slap all kinds of passers-by because of some small matters. If he didn't make them bankrupt, he would shut them out. Naturally, she became busy. She was busy picking up these people and giving them a sum of money to let them go out and make a comeback. When the time came, she would let them come back. During this period, she picked up a couple who were on the 18th floor and were planning to jump off the building. It was also because of a small matter that Li Fan made the company in their hands go bankrupt. In order to pay back the money, they sold all the properties under their names and even lost their house. The results of more than 20 years of hard work were gone just like that. For a moment, they couldn't figure it out, so they held hands and went to the roof, planning to die. Then, they were picked up by Tang Guo. Seeing that they were quite capable, she gave them a huge sum of money and let them start afresh. She wasn't afraid that these people wouldn't be able to get back up. To be able to climb to this day, who didn't have some ability and methods. She also picked up a person whose company was bankrupted, whose property was bought over, who was betrayed by his trusted aide and girlfriend, and who was almost angered to death. When she went to see that person, he was lying in the hospital, staring blankly at the ceiling, looking like he had nothing left to live for. In despair, seeing the light, anyone would desperately grab onto this life-saving straw. She was a picky person who thought that she had the ability to get back up. Her character was not bad, but she inadvertently offended Li Fan in a small matter. Or perhaps it was because of Li Fan's woman that she was implicated. It wasn't a big deal. In order to act cool in front of his woman, Li Fan wanted to make her have no way out. By the time Tang Guo was almost done with her work, some time had already passed. When she went to the library again, Fu Yanji was still sitting at the same place. The craze of the poetry conference had passed, and there weren't many people in the library in the middle of winter. Tang Guo still chose to sit at Fu Yanji's seat, which was still quite far away. Fu Yanji seemed to be used to it and didn't ask her why she didn't choose another seat. When she sat down, he even raised his head and looked at her. This glance lasted for a long time. "Where have you been recently?" That tone carried a hint of grievance. Tang Guo thought that she had heard wrongly. Fu Yanji's face was cold. How could he feel wronged because she hadn't come recently? "I'm busy with something." "What are you busy with?" Fu Yanji asked. He almost asked her why she was busy meeting those bankrupt and unemployed people. He had long found out Li Fan's identity. As for the people who were made bankrupt by Li Fan, he also knew about them. Naturally, he would know that she had gone to meet those people. He wouldn't admit that he was secretly investigating her. He only asked someone to investigate those people who were made bankrupt by Li Fan. The reason why he didn't ask directly was because he had a vague feeling that something was wrong. It wouldn't be good if she misunderstood that he was investigating her. How was it not good? In any case, it was not good. Recently, a few friends have encountered some difficulties, so I helped them. Fu Yanji's expression changed. They didn't even know each other. How could they be friends? Did he give them so much money just to help them? He had received news that those people had taken a huge sum of money to set up companies in different countries abroad and were doing very well. He suspected that she was doing charity. "Is that so?" Fu Yanji said indifferently. Perhaps he felt that his gaze was too direct, so he shifted his gaze back to the book. Tang Guo was a little baffled, but she didn't care. She also planned to read for a while. A few minutes later, Fu Yanji pushed a notebook in front of her. On the page he opened, there was a sentence: "Li Fan is not simple. This person is very strange." Peak. Chapter 2082. When she saw this sentence, Tang Guo pursed her lips and smiled. "System, host, your big cutie is quite powerful. Do you want me to check his information?" "No need. I'll ask him personally in the future." "System, we're not even familiar with each other yet, and you're already showing off your love to him?" Tang Guo also wrote a sentence in her notebook. How do you know? What's strange about him? After Fu Yanji saw it, he replied, I've checked, he's strange everywhere. I believe there are already many people who are suspicious of him, but no one is sure. I don't know what kind of powerful trump cards he has. When Fu Yanji pushed the notebook over, he was actually a little annoyed. Why did he share such a secret with her? How strange. Ever since he knew that the technology company belonged to Li Fan, as well as those wonderful business plans and some technological products that exceeded this era, although they were only for civilian use, he paid attention to them. Li Fan's actions were high profile, and whenever he met someone who was not on the right side, the outcome would not be good. Later on, he found out about the other party's experiences since he was young and was even more certain that he could not go head-to-head with Li Fan at this time. This person was very strange. Without figuring out what trump cards the other party had, he chose to let his subordinates know their place. It was also because the main assets of the Fu family were not in the country. The plan to shift the focus to the country was also put on hold because of Li Fan's appearance. Because of this uncertain factor, he did not dare to gamble with the entire family's assets. Especially after his observation during this period of time, he felt more and more that Li Fan was strange. There were many times when the opponent clearly had a stronger foundation than Li Fan and was stronger than Li Fan in all aspects. In the end, they inexplicably lost, and it was very miserable. Originally, an ordinary high school student who would only be bullied by others, suddenly changed. After the change, he went to buy a lottery ticket and won the prize. After the change, his results, which were originally ordinary, became the first place in every exam. It was the same for the college entrance exam. The result of the investigation was that in the last year, Li Fan did not study seriously. So, why did he become so strong? If he didn't study, how could he do so well? Even a genius couldn't do it, unless the questions were leaked and the answers were memorized. It was too strange. Right now, there were many people who were watching Li Fan. Those who knew a little had long avoided Li Fan's edge. Only those who didn't know would choose to clash head-on with Li Fan, and in the end, fall into his hands. When Tang Guo pushed the notebook in front of him, Fu Yanji snapped out of his daze and saw the words on the notebook. Have you found anything? Fu Yanji, no, I didn't find anything. That's why I found it strange. Tang Guo, I know, do you believe me? Fu Yanji paused for a moment and looked up at Tang Guo. She was all smiles, and that smile seemed to be able to draw people in. At that moment, his heart skipped a beat, as if it didn't belong to him anymore. He hurriedly lowered his head and picked up a pen to write, "Letter, can you tell me what's going on?" Tang Guo, why should I tell you what happened? Fu Yanji pondered for a moment before replying, this man is very dangerous. Both the Tang Corporation and his company are based in the city. Who knows, he might affect the Tang Corporation one day. Tang Guo, do you think I have money? Fu Yanji, very rich. Tang Guo, do you think I care about a mere Tang Corporation? Fu Yanji paused for a moment before replying, then will you be suppressed by him at will? When Tang Guo saw this, she laughed and continued to reply, of course not. Fu Yanji, you told me that if the Tang Corporation encounters any problems in the future, I can help you beat him up. Peak. Chapter 2083. When Tang Guo saw it, she smiled happily and replied, empty words. Fu Yanji frowned. He looked at Tang Guo and saw the young man in the coat. He seemed to have encountered some trouble and was trying to solve it. He really wanted to know what secrets Li Fan had on him. Tang Guo was right, she was very rich, and according to the recent feedback, the people she had picked up were all doing well. They had signed a contract. She owned 49% of the shares of the other party's company. One company owned 49%. There were so many people she had picked up. Who knew how many companies she had opened? So, she was really rich. Originally, he had planned to poach some people who looked good to his side, but he didn't expect her to act so quickly. Even if he went to poach them now, they wouldn't be tempted. Her conditions were too tempting. She gave them money, business plans, and market research. She didn't care about anything else. Who wouldn't be tempted? Fu Yanji thought for a long time. Finally, he took out a black gold-inlaid business card from his pocket and put it in his notebook. He pushed it in front of Tanguo. He pursed his lips. He really didn't expect that he would fall so low to give away his business card just to find out a secret. The person he gave it to was a girl who was younger than him. But he didn't regret it at all. Tanguo raised her eyebrows slightly and touched the black gold-inlaid business card. There was Fu Yanji's name on the business card. There was no introduction. There was a string of phone numbers below and a beautiful golden rose in the upper left corner. She knew that Fu Yanji had been looking at her. She took out her phone and dialed the number. Sure enough, she heard Fu Yanji's phone number ring. She glanced at Fu Yanji and saw him show her his phone, indicating that this number could be reached. Tanguo continued to reply on the notebook, legendary business tycoon, young Master Fu. I've heard a lot about you. This is the first time I've seen a black gold-inlaid business card. It feels good. It's expensive and classy. That rose is so beautiful. I'm envious. The person who carved this rose must be a famous master, right? The lines were smooth, the petals were exquisite, and the lines were clear. Fu Yanji didn't know what to say. This was the first time someone praised his business card. More importantly, wasn't it Fu Yanji's name and the phone number below? Legend has it that anyone who can get Fu Yanji's black gold-inlaid business card can call him and ask him to do something for them. As long as he thinks he can do it, he won't refuse. Even if you ask for 100 million or 200 million yuan, he will give it to you. Since Fu Yanji had taken the initiative to reveal his information, the system didn't stand on ceremony and decided to check it out. He suspected that the reason why this guy was so awesome every time was so that he could be together with his great host. After all, it was easier for awesome people to control their own feelings. There wouldn't be too many obstacles. Fu Yanji quickly replied, "Can you tell me now?" Tanguo stopped writing on the notebook and nodded at him. "I'll send you a document. You'll understand once you read it." Fu Yanji heaved a sigh of relief. He was finally able to know Li Fan's secret. He was also surprised and did not doubt her words at all. "Tongzi, help me send Li Fan's pretentious book to my phone." The system hurriedly did as instructed. "Sigh, it's good to be pampered by my great host. I can know whatever I want to know." As he packed, he glanced at Fu Yanji. Even if he had such a strange disease, he would always remember to treat his great host well. This guy was too poisoned. Peak. Chapter 2084. In a certain university library, there was a very special scene. Of course, the weather was very cold at this time of the year and very few people came to the library to read. The special scene happened in a very remote corner. Basically, no one noticed it. Next to a table, there was a boy and a girl sitting at each end. The two of them seemed to know each other, but at the same time, they didn't. If they didn't know each other well, they would occasionally raise their heads to look at each other and exchange a few words. If they didn't know each other well, they were too far apart. The boy sat by the window while the girl sat by the aisle. Tanguo supported her chin with one hand and looked up at the young man who was leaning against the window. He was wearing a black coat and had his head buried in his phone. The young man's side profile was very handsome, but it was a little unapproachable. He frowned and took a closer look. There was an incredulous expression on his face. His slender fingers subconsciously squeezed the fountain pen in his hand. He was obviously doubtful about the contents of the phone. She didn't know what was written in the phone. Time passed by and they sat there for 3 hours. The young man's fingers kept scrolling through the phone screen, 1 page per second. Those who didn't know better would think that he was looking at some pictures. Dear host, does Fu Yanji read 10 lines at a glance? It should be about the same. No matter what, he is still a young business tycoon. If he didn't have some talent, how could he sit in this position? He is a genius and has been carefully nurtured and educated. Isn't reading 10 lines at a glance a must for a genius? The system muttered silently. Can you not be so obvious when you praise your own people? They are all on the same side. Isn't it awkward to praise them like this? It was another world filled with dog food. After Tang Guo waited for about 4 hours, Fu Yanji finally stopped what he was doing. He pursed his lips and looked at Tang Guo with a complicated gaze. This book had opened the door to a new world for him. He had never touched the internet before. It wasn't that he didn't want to touch these things, but that he didn't have the time to do so. He had been groomed as the successor of the Fu Corporation since he was young. Coupled with his talent, his family valued him even more and he didn't have the time to look at the internet. However, this book of about 2 million words was flipped through at a speed of 1 page per second. In less than 4 hours, he had flipped through it nearly 10,000 times. Finally, he had roughly read through it once. At this time, not only were his fingers a little sore, but his eyes were also swollen with pain. But he didn't care about that. What he cared about was the content of the book. It was too shocking. If it weren't for the fact that all the plots in the book could be found in this world, he wouldn't have believed that there was such a ridiculous thing in this world. Tang Guo looked at Fu Yanji's trembling and stiff index finger and his slightly red eyes and burst out laughing. Fu Yanji blinked his eyes and stared at the phone screen for such a long time. His eyes were indeed uncomfortable. At this moment, Tang Guo's phone rang. She said a few words into the phone, seemingly indicating her location. Finally, she said, "Please send it over." Fu Yanji was a little confused. Then, he saw a courier come to their position. He handed a box to Tang Guo and Tang Guo pushed it to Fu Yanji. Fu Yanji picked it up and saw that it was eye drops for relieving fatigue. Peak. Chapter 2085. Your eyes are a little red, Tang Guo said. Put some eye drops on them to relieve your fatigue. Fu Yanji took the eye drops and felt a little conflicted. His cold expression also softened a little. Actually, his heart was much richer than his facial expression. This was the first time someone had bought eye drops for him. Back then, he had to finish reading a few bookshelves of books in 2 months, but no one had reminded him to use eye drops. Everyone in his family praised him and said that he could do it. They would only see the bright side of him. His father had passed away when he was very young. He was not close to his mother and had only seen her a few times. Grandpa did not like his mother and she did not care much about him. Ever since his father passed away, the responsibility of the Fu family fell on his shoulders. He couldn't enjoy the happiness of family and childhood like other children in other families. When he was able to read, he was faced with piles of books that were taller than him. There were books from both ancient and modern times. Also, there were all kinds of dazzling data. Today, he had been looking at it for nearly 4 hours. In the past, it was common for him to do so. If his eyes were sore, he could just massage them and lie down to sleep and it would be fine. But no one would remember to give him eye drops and remind him to relieve his fatigue. Host, there is something wrong with that guy's gaze. Why is he looking at you with such a pitiful gaze? Look, those eyes seem to be glowing at you. The system was really strange. Maybe he lacks love. Indeed, in this world, he needs someone to give him warmth. What a pitiful child. Just a bottle of eye drops can move him to this extent. System, devil. Fu Yanji realized that his gaze was too direct. He coughed lightly and hurriedly opened the packaging and used it according to the instructions. Indeed, after dripping the cooling eye drops into his eyes, the fatigue in his eyes disappeared instantly. He closed his eyes for a while. When he opened them again to look at Tang Guo, he said subconsciously, "If you have any trouble in the future, you can come and look for me." Although this girl gave him a strange feeling, he did not reject her at all. His heart was filled with a very special feeling. He did not understand it yet, but this did not stop him from wanting to help her. "I won't stand on ceremony." Hearing this, Fu Yanji was in a good mood. He paused for a moment before saying, "Everything written in that book is true." This was not a question, but an affirmation. There were so many coincidences that people had no choice but to believe that the Li Fan in the novel was the current Li Fan. The only difference between the book and reality was the Tang Guo in front of him. Turning his head to think, if Tang Guo had the same experience as the person inside, she wouldn't be sitting here and letting him read this book that was filled with the secrets of Li Fan's entire life. Li Fan had inadvertently obtained a system store. In the world, it was commonly known as the protagonist's golden finger, and he was the protagonist of that book. Li Fan, who had a cheat, changed his ordinary life and walked to the peak of life. If he met a god, he would kill a god. If he met a Buddha, he would kill a Buddha. Those who were at odds with him were either cannon fodder or villains. All of them would suffer. Those who obeyed him were either his women or his underlings. The Fu family was also mentioned in the novel, but the Fu family had never moved back to the country. He secretly guessed that the him inside had also noticed Li Fan's evil methods. After thinking about it, he decisively gave up on returning to the country. This made him feel better. At least the him inside was still relatively smart. The Peak. Chapter 2086. Tang Guo was also in there. Thinking of her experience, Fu Yanji's heart became complicated. Fu Yanji fell into deep thought. Even if he knew Li Fan's secret now, he couldn't take away the other party's golden finger. According to the book, one could buy anything in the system store as long as they had enough money. Li Fan now had a very powerful technology company. The various technology products developed were very popular among the people of the current generation. Such a good product was also the target of the country's support. It was impossible for him to make a move on the technology company to cut off Li Fan's funds. Even if it was cut off, it didn't mean that Li Fan didn't have any savings in his hands. Ordinary humans simply couldn't go against supernatural forces. Therefore, Fu Yanji frowned tightly. This matter was very difficult. He couldn't guarantee that if Li Fan found out that someone wanted to mess with him, he wouldn't buy something that would harm society, the public, take revenge on society, and fight to the death. He wasn't the only one who suspected Li Fan. Even the people of the country had probably noticed something unusual. It was just that they didn't know Li Fan's trump card. In addition, the products he took out made people very afraid. What he took out today might only be for the convenience of the common people. No one could guarantee that what he took out tomorrow wouldn't be a dangerous item that would harm society, the country, and the world. In just an instant, Fu Yanji felt that even if he knew that Li Fan had a golden finger, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. No matter how powerful he was, he wouldn't have these supernatural powers. Therefore, his gaze fell on Tang Guo. Since she could take out Li Fan's secret, then she should have a certain understanding of the system store. The people she helped in charity might not necessarily not want to deal with Li Fan. "Do you have any plans?" "Yes." Tang Guo answered straightforwardly. Fu Yanji's eyes lit up. "Then what do you plan to do?" "Good things naturally have to be handed over to the country." Tang Guo still said straightforwardly, "This kind of thing can cause a bad effect in anyone's hands. Right now, Li Fan has only made people go bankrupt. I don't know what will happen in the future. This thing is a good thing, but also a dangerous thing. Let's leave it to the powerful national weapons to protect." Fu Yanji. Is that so? But he thought that she was borrowing the power of the country to take revenge for her personal grudge. Well, no matter what the reason was, he thought it was a good idea. If Li Fan had hidden himself a little, been careful, and did not offend the public, he would not have provoked these people. But he was too high profile, and he had already become a threat to many people. Whoever provoked him would go bankrupt and be unable to make a comeback for the rest of their lives. There was no reason for that. Especially for a few women, he almost caused them to jump off a building because they couldn't figure it out. He even made those women's ex-fiancés miserable. It could be said that Li Fan's appearance was bound to disrupt the market. With his temperament, if his company were to expand, he would still have to face the entire country in the future. No one was willing to watch such an existence grow. He even lived with so many women in public, clearly declaring to everyone that he was a local tyrant. What should we do then? Fu Yanji asked again. Unknowingly, he was already sitting beside Tang Guo. After all, such a big event was too far away and too loud. It would easily attract the attention of others. Noticing this, Tang Guo patted Fu Yanji's shoulder and said smilingly, "You can talk, but don't get so close to me. I'm afraid of men." System, pft. This vengeful behavior. Peak. Chapter 2087. Fu Yanji also stiffened for a moment. Only then did he realize that he was so close to Tang Guo and that she had even patted him. According to the past, when he was in close contact with the opposite sex, his body should have had an uncomfortable reaction. His face would subconsciously turn pale, accompanied by cold sweat and a red rash. This was a natural reaction of his body and he couldn't control it. But at this moment, he actually didn't have any reaction. He was surprised and hurriedly touched his forehead. There didn't seem to be cold sweat. He took out his phone and took a picture, but he didn't find any red rashes on his neck and face. This discovery made Fu Yanji silent for a moment. Could it be that he had recovered? Wait for me. Fu Yanji said to Tang Guo and got up to go to the librarian's seat. He remembered that the librarian today was a female classmate. Although it looked very childish, he had to try and see if he had recovered. Tang Guo sat in her seat and had no intention of going over. A minute later, she saw Fu Yanji walk back with a pale face and lips, accompanied by cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Seeing that he wasn't in a good state, Tang Guo hurriedly got up and walked over. Fu Yanji almost said that he didn't need her help, but she had already held his arm. He should have felt uncomfortable, but when Tang Guo held his arm, his condition actually improved a lot. Fu Yanji slowly calmed down and his face regained its color. The red rash on his neck was gradually dissipating and his cold sweat was no longer dripping. Hence, in the end, he only moved his lips and didn't reject Tang Guo's help. "Are you sick?" Tang Guo asked calmly. If one didn't know the situation, they would think that Tang Guo was scolding him. Fu Yanji nodded. Since Tang Guo knew about Li Fan's miraculous things and her whereabouts, Fu Yanji already treated her as an equal. "It's a strange illness that no one can treat for me." Fu Yanji almost said that he had a phobia. This was a psychological illness and the symptoms were different. But when she was so close to him just now, he didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, he felt better. This time, Fu Yanji looked at Tang Guo in a different light. He said seriously, "But now, I have a guess. You might be my medicine." Fu Yanji really did not think of anything else. He had never come into contact with a girl before. She didn't know what it meant to be moved or to like someone. Don't watch TV, don't read romance novels. Every day, he read professional books, business planning, data analysis, and so on. Combined with the way Tang Guo interacted with him just now, he came to the conclusion that Tang Guo might be his drug. Really, he was just stating this result very seriously. Moreover, he wanted her to treat his illness. "You want me to treat your illness?" Tang Guo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did she meet someone with a high IQ but a low EQ this time? "Yes, ever since I was young, you were the only one who didn't make me feel uncomfortable. I think you're the breakthrough for my treatment, so I'll definitely reward you." If you need any help in the future, I will do my best. As for Li Fan, we can also join hands. After saying this, Fu Yanji felt that he had gone crazy. He didn't even have time to negotiate, and he had already given out his most generous offer. He must have gone crazy. But when he saw the girl in front of him thinking, he was still a little nervous. She wouldn't refuse, right? Was the condition not enough? Peak. Chapter 2088. Okay. Tang Guo agreed. But it will take some time. I still have some things to settle. When I'm done, I'll come and treat your illness every day. Fu Yanji didn't rush her and even asked if she needed help. However, he felt that Tang Guo's words about coming to treat his illness every day sounded a little strange. System, of course, you can understand it as flirting with him every day. Tang Guo shook her head and said no because Li Fan would soon set his sights on her. Then, it would be time for her and Zhang Xing to fall out. From the description in the novel, Zhang Xing seemed to like the original owner. However, according to Tang Guo's later interactions with Zhang Xing, he was the same as her. He probably thought that the marriage between the two families was the best choice. As for Zhang Xing, he was indeed a clean and honest person, which was one of his great strengths. However, he might also have designs on the Tang group. After all, she was the only daughter of the family Tang couple. Therefore, it was very easy for them to fall out with such in-laws. In such a situation, Zhang Xing's choice was very normal and correct. As for Zhang Xing, Tang Guo didn't dwell on it for long. She flipped open the date and counted the days. The Tang group and the Zhang family should be planning to work together on a big project. For this project, the family Tang couple and the shareholders of the Tang group had put in a lot of effort. In fact, the Zhang family was the same. Both families were very optimistic about this project. If not for the engagement between Tang Guo and Zhang Xing, they wouldn't have dared to invest such a large sum of money in this project. Because if this project failed, the two companies would at least shrink, and at worst, they would face bankruptcy and change owners. Tang Guo chose to go back to eat with her parents this week and mentioned this matter in passing. Hearing that Tang Guo was paying attention to the company's matters, the couple was happy. Their daughter had always been sensible, so the couple told her that they were optimistic about this project. Tang Guo naturally knew that this project would indeed make money in the future. Later, the two families fell out because of Li Fan. The project fell into Li Fan's hands, earning him a large sum of money. Back then, the couple had brought her into such dire straits. Another reason was that for this project, they had invested most of the funds that they could take out. In the end, they had to repay the loan in order to save the project. Otherwise, with just bankruptcy, it was impossible for a family with such a strong foundation to live in poverty like ordinary people. When Tang Guo heard the couple talking about the joy of this project and how they were planning to invest the funds in it, she interrupted. Dad, Mom, I think it's better if we don't get involved personally. Although this project sounds very tempting, we have to leave a way out for ourselves, right? No one can guarantee what will happen midway. What your mother and I are thinking is, as long as we invest our funds into this project, Tang Core will have a large share of the profits. When the time comes, we will have more say in this project and a lot of things will be easier to do. Tang Guo paused for a moment and said, what if the Zhangs suddenly withdraw their investment? Tang Core was in charge of this project, so it was good that they had the final say. But, if the Zhang family were to withdraw their investment and not be able to find outside help, wouldn't their money be wasted? If they don't leave a way out, what will they do in the future? Mother Tang was silent for a moment. Xiao Guo is already engaged to the Zhang family's son. Our two families have always had a good relationship. For the sake of your grandfather, I don't think they would do anything that would harm themselves. Is the in-laws really that strong? Grandfather passed away a few years ago. Tang Guo continued, this is only an engagement, so it can be cancelled at any time. Plus, this marriage was arranged for me by grandfather when he was still alive. The Peak. Chapter 2089. Most of the time, the two families are doing it for the sake of Grandpa and Old Master Zhang. It's not because Zhang Xing and I are engaged. Dad and Mom have invested all the money in it. If anyone wants to mess with us, it's too easy. Hearing Tang Guo's words, the couple thought about it silently for a while. Then, they felt that they were too impulsive. That project could indeed make a lot of money, but if there were problems in the middle, the money would be wasted. Not to mention other things, just one thing alone was something they couldn't bear, and that was the Zhang family withdrawing their investment. In fact, this project was mainly in charge of Tang Group. The Zhang family was responsible for investing the money. The money wasn't in one go. And because Tang Group was in charge of the home ground, they would definitely invest a lot of money in the first half. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that Tang Guo's words made sense. They dispelled their previous thoughts. When they had a meeting with the shareholders, the two of them didn't talk about using their own money to make up for it and give the company an advantage. The current Tang Group was no longer just two people. It was the Tang Group of the entire shareholders. After Tang Guo's reminder, the two of them thought a lot. This was everyone's business. It didn't make sense for them to shoulder it. If the shareholders weren't satisfied, then everyone would pool the money. Tang Guo didn't know how the couple discussed with the shareholders in the end. Anyway, there was still some time before the project started. Even if it started, Tang Group's money was enough to last for a while. When it was almost done, the Zhang family would start to invest. When it was almost half done, Li Fan, this accident, happened. Calculating the time, there were still a few months. It wouldn't be so fast. Nothing happened to Tang Group, but something happened to Tang Guo's roommate, Ran Jingdan. One day, when Tang Guo came back, she found Ran Jingdan sitting by the bed in a daze with a pale face. This reminded Tang Guo that there was indeed a day when the original owner came back and saw Ran Jingdan acting a little strange. She asked a few questions and the other party said that nothing happened. The original owner was a little busy at that time. She went out in a hurry and planned to come back later to ask about the specific situation. Then, Ran Jingdan wasn't around for a few days. When she came back, it seemed that nothing had happened. She even asked the other party. The other party said that the matter had been resolved and there was no problem. This time, Tang Guo was not in a hurry. She carefully asked Ran Jingdan what had happened. Ran Jingdan was a proud and somewhat headstrong girl. In the face of Tang Guo's question, she still said nothing, because she thought that Tang Guo couldn't help her at all. After all, her father had caused too much trouble this time. Although they lived in the same dormitory, the original owner kept a low profile. She never flaunted her identity as the daughter of the Tang family, nor did she show her face outside. The Tang couple protected her very well, so Ran Jingdan and the other roommates only knew that the original owner came from a wealthy family, but they didn't know that she was the daughter of the family. She didn't say anything at that time because she thought that even if Tang Guo's family was well off, there was no way she could help her. So what if they knew his identity? No one would spend a lot of effort and money to help a person they only knew and had an ordinary relationship with for no reason. They also had no obligation to do so. What? Are you leaving? I'll go back and take a look. Ran Jingdan packed her things and pulled out a smile. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. How about I accompany you back? If there's anything, I can help you. Ran Jingdan quickly shook her head. No, I'll take care of this matter myself. She seemed to not want Tang Guo to be involved in it. Seeing this, Tang Guo no longer forced her. The mystery was about to be revealed. She planned to secretly follow Ran Jingdan and see why she followed Li Fan. She guessed that this was the time to make the arrogant Ran Jingdan yield. Peak. Chapter 2090. Tang Guo secretly followed Ran Jingdan to a casino. The casino was a separate building. Just by looking at it from the outside, the building was resplendent and magnificent. Not only could one play games in this building, there were also other entertainment projects. There were a total of 12 floors, and each time, there was a unique style. For many people, this was the most intoxicating place. Host, let me tell you a piece of news. Li Fan and his women are also playing in this casino. Although she had expected it, Li Fan, the male lead, was really haunting her. He was everywhere. Originally, she wanted to go up and see what kind of trouble Ran Jingdan had encountered. Hearing that Li Fan was here, she planned to find a place to wait. After all, she needed to figure out how Ran Jingdan and Li Fan were related. When she walked into the casino, she was invited in. In order to avoid attracting the attention of the people inside, she also called the waiter to help her change the chips and casually played a few rounds in the hall. She was indeed casually betting. There were wins and losses, and if she counted, she had earned a little. The system couldn't help but sigh. If the host was a little more serious, she should have earned more. Just casually throwing it, she wouldn't lose anything. It could be seen that her luck was getting better and better. It wasn't like when they were first bound, no matter what the host did, she was the unluckiest one. Thinking of what happened back then, the system still felt a little uncomfortable. It was stupid in the past. It had already guessed why its host's luck was getting better and better. Because the host was in a good mood, she would be happy when she was in a good mood, and she would laugh when she was happy. It was said that girls who liked to laugh would not have bad luck. When Tang Guo heard the system's explanation, she almost laughed to death. What the hell, a girl who liked to laugh would not have bad luck. Her luck was good, so what if it was a smile? It was clearly her who controlled fate and locked her own luck. She also accidentally did some good things and had merit on her. However, she always felt that the merit on her soul was more than she imagined. She had guessed who she used to be, but she didn't insist on figuring it out. The current days were not bad. It didn't matter if the shuttle ended or not. Tang Guo played for about half an hour, and heard from the system that Ran Jingdan had already met Li Fan. They were on the 11th floor. The reason was that Ran Jingdan's father had not only lost all his assets, but also owed the other party a lot of money. Even after selling off all the real estate in the family, he still couldn't pay it back. No matter how Ran Jingdan begged, she naturally had no way to make the other party agree to extend her time. After all, the Ran family had no money left for such a large sum of money. Her mother was so angry that she fell ill and was still in the hospital. Ran Jingdan looked at the bald man sitting on the chair and pursed her lips tightly. What do you want for you to let my father go? Of course it's to return the money. The bald man looked at Ran Jingdan with a smile. What else? It's a matter of course to repay a debt, don't you think so? The man smiled and said to the people around him. These people were all at the same table with them before, but they all met by chance and did not know each other. There was still a taboo in this place. It was best to avoid people who knew each other to avoid being set up. How about this? If you follow me, I'll reluctantly let your father go. When your mother appears, and both of you follow me, I'll let bygones be bygones. Vertex. Chapter 2091. Ran Jingdan was furious. If it weren't for the fact that her father was still in the other party's hands, she would have cursed out loud. When Tang Guo heard this, she also raised her eyebrows slightly. Her goal was so clear that it seemed like a trap. Tongzi, check that bald man, a few other people, and Ran Jingdan's father. See if there's any grudges between them and if there's a trap. The system agreed and then fell silent. Even though the internet was a huge amount of data, under the current system, it was still easy to check something. Ran Jingdan was naturally unwilling to follow the bald man, and the other party's conditions were too humiliating. If it was just for her to compromise, she would definitely agree in the end if she couldn't think of a way. However, the other party actually wanted Thinking of this, Ran Jingdan felt incomparable despair. At this moment, a voice entered Ran Jingdan's ears. Ran Jingdan, why are you here? Ran Jingdan turned her head in confusion, only feeling that the voice was somewhat familiar. She turned around and saw Miao Han walking towards her. She replied softly, why are you here? I have something to do. Did something happen at home? I heard everything. When Miao Han said this, Ran Jingdan's face became even paler. Ever since she was young, she had never been in such a sorry state. Especially when she saw Li Fan walking over with a few women, she wished she could find a hole to hide in. Among these women, there were many that she was familiar with and were even from the same school. They must have heard what the bald man said just now. How much money does your father owe them? Miao Han's heart stirred as she asked. Because of Miao Han's appearance, Tang Guo stopped in her tracks and hid in the crowd. Everyone was attracted by Ran Jingdan's side, so naturally, they noticed her. Ran Jingdan's face was filled with despair as she said with absent-minded eyes, 80 million. Her family's total assets were not even 80 million. Now that she had nothing, how could she take out 80 million? Even though she was very puzzled in her heart, how could her father lose close to 100 million all of a sudden? Her father was not like this in the past. He had never come into contact with these things. It was just that she no longer had the mood to care about those things, because other than the money her father owed these people, he had also misappropriated public funds. If she did not return the money within 3 days, not only would her family face a huge debt, her father would also have to go to court. She admitted that her father had made a mistake. It was wrong of him to misappropriate public funds for gambling. But after all, he was the father who had doted on her since she was young. Other than this, he had always been a good father. Her mother was still waiting in the hospital for her good news. No matter what, she had to get through this sadness, but she couldn't agree to that bald man's request. She was fine with herself, but how could she drag her mother down with her? The bald man's condition was that as long as she and her mother agreed, they wouldn't have to pay back the debt. After all, they would help her father make up for the misappropriated funds. After all, it had only been used for a few days, so it shouldn't be a problem to make up for it. Ran Jingdan buried her head. She didn't know who the other party was, but she knew that the other party had proposed this condition to humiliate her father. She even guessed that they might have used some tricks to frame her father. No matter what, it had already happened. What could she do? Despair. She finally knew what despair was. Ran Jingdan, maybe Brother Fan can help you. Miao Han's voice drifted into Ran Jingdan's ears, causing her to raise her head. Vertex. Chapter 2092. Ran Jingdan looked at Li Fan, who was surrounded by a few women, and her heart skipped a beat. Would Li Fan help her? Her previous attitude towards Li Fan was so bad. Even if she knew that the other party could help her, she still couldn't like Li Fan. Moreover, how could Li Fan help someone like her who didn't like him and even hated him? It's not like he's doing charity. However, she was already at her wit's end. If she agreed to the bald man's condition, her entire family would be humiliated. In the future, her father would also live in self-blame. If she begged Li Fan, even if she suffered any grievances, it would only be her alone. Speaking of which, it was a lot more worth it. Even if she hated Li Fan, if she could solve this matter, she was willing to lower her head. Why should I help you? Earlier, Li Fan had indeed had enough of Ran Jingdan's bad attitude towards him. Hearing that the other party wanted to borrow money from him, he was finally able to let out a sigh of relief. Ran Jingdan was usually a high and mighty young miss in front of him. He had heard her call him a playboy more than once. He had a lot of women and was still fooling around. So what if he fooled around? That was because his woman had good taste, was tactful, obedient, and was willing to follow him. He really didn't expect that the young miss who was usually high and mighty in front of him would actually use such a low attitude to ask him to lend her money. He really spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Ran Jingdan had suffered a setback, and all her arrogance had been shattered in an instant. Li Fan's mood was extremely good. Of course, he wouldn't agree just because of Ran Jingdan's request. That would make him seem too easy to talk to. Ran Jingdan was very good-looking, with fair skin and long legs. It could be said that among the women he knew, Ran Jingdan's legs were the longest and most good-looking. The first time he saw Ran Jingdan, he was attracted by her legs. It was impossible to say that he didn't have any improper thoughts about Ran Jingdan. However, this woman had always hated him. If he didn't poke at her spirit, even if she came to his side in the future, she would still act high and mighty, disobedient. He didn't like it. After all, he had a lot of women. Obedient women naturally had to be pampered a little. This kind of disobedient woman, of course, had to obey him, so as to not bully the other women by his side. What do you want? Ran Jingdan had already figured it out. Her parents had raised her for so long. She absolutely couldn't sit back and do nothing. This time, she was the one begging Li Fan. If the other party was willing to help, she would agree to any conditions. She might lose a lot, even her dignity, but she would feel guilty for the rest of her life if she left her father alone. Even if Li Fan took advantage of the situation at this time, she would not be angry. If he did not take advantage of the situation, then he would not be called Li Fan. He was originally a despicable and shameless villain, so don't expect him to do good deeds. She agreed to any of his conditions, and he would help her save her father. It was very fair. Be my woman and listen to me in the future. You're not allowed to say anything bad about me. If I tell you to smile at me, then smile at me. If it had been before, Ran Jingdan would have been very angry after hearing those words. She would have immediately scolded him for being despicable and shameless. But now, she was very calm, and she believed that this was indeed a condition that Li Fan could propose. She raised a smile, and just as she was about to answer, a heavenly voice sounded, Ran Jingdan, I already said that if there's anything, you can look for me. Do you not treat me as a friend? Tang Gua, who had watched the entire process, and with the information collected by the system, she had already figured out the truth behind Ran Jingdan becoming Li Fan's woman. Peak. Chapter 2093. She was a little impressed by Ran Jingdan's magnanimity. Even though Li Fan's conditions were very humiliating, she was very clear that the difficulties she encountered were not something that an ordinary person could solve. Presumably, she had already calculated in her heart that agreeing to the bald man was more beneficial to her or Li Fan. Obviously, it was the latter. Since she had chosen to agree, she, who was so proud, would not cry and pitifully agree to the conditions, making her seem very weak. On the contrary, she was prepared to agree frankly, thinking that this was a fair deal for both sides. In the storyline, even if Ran Jingdan became Li Fan's woman, she would still have a foothold in the business world. It was unknown if it was because of this incident that year that she became a very powerful trader and financial analyst. Tang Gua's lips curved. She would not be polite with such a talent. In the future, if her parents were to leave their current company, Ran Jingdan would be able to help a lot. System: the host is a big cattle farmer, and has never suffered a loss. Ran Jingdan was very surprised by Tang Gua's appearance. Her eyes were somewhat moved. She thought of something and shook her head, thank you for coming, but you can't help me with this matter. Why don't you believe me? Ran Jingdan replied indifferently, it's not that I believe you, but I don't want to cause trouble for you. After all, the price of helping me is too great. She did not want to implicate anyone, especially someone like Tang Gua who still cared about her. Li Fan was a little annoying, but if the bald man looked for trouble, he would find Li Fan in the future and would not vent his anger on Tang Gua. Yes, that's right, Ran Jingdan also had her own plans. She was not some little white flower, so naturally, she would calculate the side that was beneficial to her. I'm not helping you for free. Tang Guo's eyes were full of smiles, and then she called for a waiter. I want to see your boss. Miss, if you want to see our boss, please make an appointment first. Then if I want to see your manager, the lobby manager wouldn't need an appointment, right? This request, the waiter indeed had no way to refuse. Soon, the lobby manager in a suit came to Tang Guo and asked her what she needed in a very friendly manner. I want to see your boss. Tang Guo didn't wait for the lobby manager to use the previous set of excuses. She continued, I found a very serious matter. There are people in your casino who are cheating and colluding to set a trap for others. I don't think Casino City wants to see such a thing happen, right? As the most formal casino in this city, the person in charge of the casino naturally didn't want such a thing to happen. Once there were too many cases of cheating, the casino would lose its credibility. Customers wouldn't come here to play anymore. There were many other entertainment activities in the casino. Miss, do you have any evidence? Yes, there is ample evidence. Tang Guo said with a smile and waved her phone. The evidence is here. If your boss doesn't want to see me, you can take my phone up. Of course, the lobby manager didn't dare to take Tang Guo's phone up. Now everyone was watching, and with his eyesight, he wouldn't be wrong. This miss was not simple, so it was better not to offend her. Since things like cheating and setting a trap had happened, their casino must take care of it to the end. They could also use this matter to win the favor of other customers. Thinking of this, without hesitation, he quickly went to find the boss. The summit. Chapter 2094. The evidence provided by Tang Guo was very sufficient. It included the text messages that the bald man and a few other people colluded with each other. The images captured by the surveillance camera were enough to let people understand that they knew each other and were very familiar with each other. More importantly, there were several transactions between the bald man and them that amounted to hundreds of thousands of yuan. The most important thing was that Tang Guo still had some grudges between the bald man and Ran Jingdan's father. Ran Jingdan's father actually worked in an entertainment company and managed many new artists in this industry. And this bald man was the boss of a company. He was more lecherous. The only thing that Ran Jingdan's father had offended the other party was that one time when he was eating, he found that a good-looking young lady had something mixed in her wine. That young lady was about the same age as his daughter. He sympathized with her and asked her in a low voice if she wanted to leave this place. Then, he took her away. Naturally, the bald man held a grudge. He found someone to set up a trap for Ran Jingdan's father to fall into. In the end, he fell deeper and deeper. What was disappointing was that the young lady finally hooked up with another boss who was better looking than the bald man. After Ran Jingdan's father got into trouble, there was not a single word of condolence. Ran Jingdan looked at the evidence and smiled with tears in her eyes. Her father was still her father. He did not gamble for pleasure, but because he offended someone and was schemed against. Moreover, he provoked the other party because he did a good deed out of kindness. Even if the person he saved later failed to live up to her father's expectations, she did not blame her father at all. Because her father thought of her and helped the other party. So, how much did her father love her? Even if he was in that circle, he would not be wrapped in mud. Since he was set up, Ran Jingdan's father would naturally not return the money that he owed the bald man. Moreover, the gambling city wanted to punish them because he cheated and colluded with people to set up a trap. The boss of the gambling city was not a soft-hearted person. Tang Guo and Ran Jingdan did not care about how they were punished. They took Ran Jingdan's father and left the casino. From the beginning to the end, Tang Guo did not even look at Li Fan. When she took out the evidence, Li Fan seemed to have been forgotten by others. Li Fan's previous behavior, compared to Tang Guo's current behavior, also caused a lot of discussion. Naturally, he didn't look too good, and the women around him were all comforting him. In short, Li Fan bore a grudge against Tang Guo in his heart. Today, he had been slapped in the face. He was furious. He thought that one day, he would let Tang Guo know what kind of person he was. Tang Guo, thank you for today, but... Ran Jingdan was still very worried about whether the bald man and Li Fan would find trouble with Tang Guo. Even if they didn't have to pay back the money, the casino wasn't obligated to get all the money back for them. After all, although the other party had cheated and set a trap, Ran's father had lost the money himself, so they still had nothing left. Unless they called the police. However, once they called the police, the matter would become serious. Looking at the pale-faced Ran Jingdan's father, Ran Jingdan fell into another difficult situation. After all, she still needed a sum of money to fill the gap in his company. Now that only a few days had passed, there shouldn't be a problem to fill in the gaps. Tang Guo took out a card and a contract and handed it to the father and daughter. Sign it. This is your slave contract. The money will be given to you in advance as your salary. Look carefully and then sign it. In the future, you can only receive monthly living expenses, unless your salary pays off the debt. The Summit. Chapter 2095. Both Ran Jingdan's father and Ran Jingdan were capable. They could do something, especially Ran Jingdan. This woman was ruthless to herself and dared to work hard. She was such a good employee, so she must sign her on as soon as possible. Ran Jingdan and Mr. Ran were stunned for a moment. In the end, they read the contract carefully and signed it without hesitation. So be it. This time, she was really willing to work for Tang Guo for the rest of her life. She was very happy and did not feel humiliated at all. It was really worth it. She did not expect to find a golden thigh. Mr. Ran had embezzled a lot of public funds. It was 20 million yuan. A roommate who could easily fork out 20 million yuan. If this was not a golden thigh, then what was? She was going to hug it. Tang Guo felt Ran Jingdan's happiness and her heart thumped. Why did this woman seem happier than her? System, dear host, it's normal for her to be happy. I understand. Why? Who wouldn't be happy to hug a golden thigh? Only I, who have been hugging a golden thigh, know how thick the golden thigh is. I want to hug it even more. I want to use glue to stick myself to your leg like a pendant. Tang Guo, they first went to visit Mrs. Ran. After knowing that Mr. Ran was fine, she recuperated in peace. Mr. Ran paid for the money and resigned. He took a sum of money and went to another city according to Tang Guo's instructions to start a new life. Carrying the business plan and various materials that Tang Guo gave him, he started a difficult life of entrepreneurship. Ran Jingdan also started to get busy. After coming back that day, Tang Guo gave her many books and asked her to read them while helping Mr. Ran. Tang Guo even said to her, I've invested so much in you. Don't disappoint me. Whether I can become the richest person depends on you. Ran Jingdan expressed that she was under a lot of pressure. The richest person. It was very difficult. Tang Guo looked expectant. She could only grit her teeth and work hard. She was very happy to be working so hard to earn money. Miao Han returned to the dormitory a few times. When she saw Tang Guo and Ran Jingdan, she wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she didn't say anything. Li Fan met Tang Guo a few times by chance, but Tang Guo treated him coldly and unapproachable, which made him very annoyed. Later, when Tang Guo and Zhang Xing met, she heard the other party ask about Li Fan. Li Fan, a junior from the same school. Tang Guo stirred her coffee cup. She was curious about what Li Fan had said to Zhang Xing. The way Zhang Xing looked at Tang Guo was as if he was looking at a woman who had made him a cuckold. This made Tang Guo a little funny, but she still explained it again, I'm not familiar with him, and he has a lot of girlfriends. Do you know about that new technology company? It is said that their company has developed a new product. Not only that, they are also planning to enter the pharmaceutical industry. Speaking of this, Zhang Xing sighed with envy and jealousy. Because he knew that Li Fan was the boss behind that company. He was too young and too powerful, which made him lose his mind. So Li Fan found him and said that he didn't love Tang Guo, so he shouldn't delay her. He naturally thought that Tang Guo and Li Fan had hooked up. But the more it was like this, the more he didn't want to break off the engagement with Tang Guo. This woman dared to make him a cuckold, so how could he let her have her way? Tang Guo felt the ruthlessness in Zhang Xing's eyes, but she didn't care. I'll pick you up on the weekend. Zhang Xing already had a plan in his heart. Didn't Li Fan take a fancy to his woman? He didn't go any further because he was concerned about his image and the relationship between the two families. He was afraid of leaving a bad impression on her. Since they were already engaged, it should be natural for them to be together. If Li Fan wanted this woman, she had to be his leftover. Young master, do you need to do anything? The old butler saw that Fu Yanji kept staring at the photo on the table. It was a scene of a man and a woman in a cafe. His heart skipped a beat. If young master likes this girl, let's put pressure on the Zhang family to break off the engagement and marry her back. There was nothing wrong with being a little rough. Girls nowadays like this kind of overbearing CEO very much. Butler, you need to go to the hospital to see a doctor. It is indeed easy to get dementia when you are old. Fu Yanji said coldly, I don't want to be hated by her. She won't like doing such a thing. The old butler. He really didn't understand why his young master looked so obedient when he mentioned that girl. She couldn't see it. Peak. Chapter 2096. The appearance of the pharmaceutical company under Li Fan attracted the attention of countless people. Especially the medicine developed by the pharmaceutical company, it made all parties unable to sit still. Although it had not reached the level of being able to cure cancer, being able to truly remove scars had shocked the entire pharmaceutical industry. In the past, shallow scars could still be slowly removed using various techniques. But once the wound was deep, it was impossible to remove it after forming a scar. Although the medicine developed by the pharmaceutical company under Li Fan could not completely remove the deep scars immediately, many people saw hope from their test reports. Li Fan had been planning for the pharmaceutical industry for a long time. He also wanted to directly take out something that would shock the world, but the woman beside him reminded him that he had been too high-profile recently. When Tang Guo was not looking, Li Fan and his women had actually avoided a lot of danger. His magical experience, the things in his hands, it was impossible for no one to covet them. Those people did not dare to be brazen, but they still had ways in the dark. After all this, Li Fan did not directly make a big fuss. Recently, he was also quite busy dealing with those people who wanted to steal his things. There were all kinds of strange items in Li Fan's mystical system store. Using these magical things, Li Fan had already found out those people who had designs on him. As a result, many enterprises in the country had all kinds of turmoil recently. It was either the capital chain was broken, or there was a problem with the management. There was also the boss who had an accident. Although he did not die, he was still sent to the hospital. Li Fan did it. Those people arranged for people to get close to Li Fan, kidnap his women, or go to the company to steal experimental reports and documents. Then he got angry and pulled out all these people. Oh. Hearing this, Tang Guo was not surprised, nor did she sympathize. The one who provoked him first was cheap. They clearly knew that Li Fan was strange, but they still wanted to greedily steal his things and even touch his women. It would be strange if they did not drive this kid crazy. He did not die this time, but it might not be the next time. The system observed Tang Guo's expression and realized that she did not care about these things at all. If it had a tongue, it would really want to spit it out. It seemed that the host had never thought of helping those people who had been tricked. Even if I pick up trash, I will pick up the best. I will not pick up real trash. I am really not a trash collector. The system was speechless. Recently, Li Fan is becoming more and more arrogant. Fu Yanji sat beside Tang Guo, although there was still a distance between them. All parties have sent people to test him, but no one has managed to find out anything useful. Fu Sang country also sent a female assassin, intending to use her beauty to seduce Li Fan. I didn't expect that female assassin to become his woman. When he said this, Fu Yanji's expression was a little uncomfortable. It's the same as in that book. Although Tang Guo's intervention had changed a lot of things in the current situation. As long as Tang Guo did not interfere, the plot was still the same as before. The female assassin from Fusang who had originally killed Li Fan was still subdued by him, and she even willingly became his woman. Currently, she was hidden in the villa by him. Previously, Li Fan did some things that caused many enterprises to be in turmoil. His actions have already affected this society. If there is no solution, the higher-ups may use force to restrain him. Can they restrain you? Tang Guo asked with a smile. Vertex. Chapter 2097. I can't. Fu Yanji said coldly, but his cold eyes were on Tang Guo's face. Coincidentally, when he was looking at Tang Guo was also looking at him. Being stared at by a girl like this, Fu Yanji looked away uncomfortably, but he couldn't help but glance at her from the corner of his eyes. The corners of Tang Guo's mouth curved. Have you been feeling better recently? It's still the same. Fu Yanji thought of something and his ears turned red. I can't get too close to the opposite sex, I can't even help the maids. At this point, he met her eyes again, but it's not a problem to sit beside you, so when are you going to treat me? System, ha 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 ha. Isn't this good? It's pretty good, I can only get close to the host, a girl. Fu Yanji actually didn't think that there was anything bad about this illness. After all, he didn't like to get too close to the opposite sex. The only bad thing was that if the opposite sex got too close to him, his body would feel uncomfortable. If it could be treated, he still hoped to be able to cure it. Let's talk about Li Fan. Even if Fu Yanji was very talented in business, when he met someone like Li Fan who used mysterious supernatural powers, he still couldn't think of any way to restrain the other party. Even if he knew about the system store, what could he do? From the recent turmoil in some enterprises in the country, this person was a madman. If he couldn't instantly grasp the other party's weakness and defeat him, then he would receive the revenge of a mad dog. He remembered that in the book, Li Fan was becoming more and more arrogant and had already flouted the law, so the higher-ups had no choice but to take forceful action. Even if they used very powerful weapons, they still couldn't do anything to Li Fan. In the end, the government had no choice but to compromise and sit down with the other party to negotiate peacefully. In the end, Li Fan obtained a transcendent position in this country, so naturally, his actions were different from ordinary people. For example, if a rich second generation offended him or his woman, he would kill that person in a private room. No one would pursue his crime, he could say that it was the other party who offended him. Even if the government felt helpless, because the other party was mysterious and powerful, they had no choice but to help him clean up. The Li Fan in the plot, this world no longer had any restrictions on him. Because of this, there were more and more women around him. Other than the dozens of women who were rightfully valued by him, there were also some who were given to him by others. There was no lack of people in this world who wanted to curry favor with such a strong person. As long as they could connect with Li Fan, what was the sacrifice of a woman? Li Fan had even built a palace on a certain famous mountain, and the people living in the palace were all his women. I thought that you have great powers and would be able to solve this problem. Tang Guo blinked. Even the legendary young master of the Fu family couldn't solve it. Is it something a university student like me can solve? Fu Yanji said seriously, I believe you can. So, young master. Fu Yanji was stunned for a moment before he said, "Since you're so capable, there's nothing wrong with sucking up to you. Young Master Fu is different from what the rumors say. In the rumors, you're very cold, but in reality, you're trying to cozy up to a girl." Fu Yanji's expression did not change. He thought that since the girl in front of him knew that Li Fan was extraordinary, she was naturally not simple. System, Fu Yanji, your character has been ruined. Please put away your sparkling little eyes. Chapter 2098. In the end, Fu Yanji didn't get any useful information from Tang Gua. He only knew that she probably wouldn't let Li Fan continue. He had a vague guess that she seemed to be waiting for an opportunity. As for what this opportunity was, he didn't know. She was too mysterious. She was so mysterious that her entire body was covered in fog. People couldn't see clearly, but they wanted to figure it out. Fu Yanji felt that there was a kind of Li Fan acting like a tyrant in this world, and that world was a well. She was the person sitting at the mouth of the well, silently looking at the person in the well. When he came back to his senses, he smiled and thought that such a thought was very strange. Seeing that Tang Gua had put all the books back, he remembered that it was Friday, so she had to leave early. "Are you going home?" Tang Gua looked back and smiled. "No, my fiancé is here to pick me up for dinner." "Fiancé?" Fu Yanji's smile disappeared. He almost forgot that she still had a fiancé who didn't have a strong presence. "Take care." He pursed his lips and didn't look up. From Tang Gua's point of view, it was as if all eyes were on the books on the table. In fact, he didn't read a single word. His mind was filled with the thought that she was going on a date with her fiancé. If she was an ordinary girl, he might really want to be a domineering CEO, like Li Fan, directly bankrupting the Zhang family and snatching her away. But she wasn't. If he did that, he would definitely make her unhappy and ruin her plan. All the photos he asked people to take showed that she and Zhang Xing were very unfamiliar. Even when they were dating, they had never held hands. Was she the kind of person who would wrong herself? Since she didn't like Zhang Xing, it definitely wouldn't last long. Then why did she agree to get engaged to him? There must be some plan. In fact, Fu Yanji had already guessed what Tang Gua was waiting for. She was waiting for the chance to change her fate. She was waiting for the chance to change her fate. Zhang Xing had given up on her in order to protect his family. And she definitely had to wait for Zhang Xing to show such a face. After all, their engagement was set by the older generation. At present, the two families didn't have any conflicts, and there was also a joint project. If she took the initiative to break off the engagement, it would be disadvantageous to the Tang family. In an instant, Fu Yanji thought a lot. He finally comforted himself. His heart was no longer angry. He was just a fiancé who was about to pass his prime. Sooner or later, he would have to step down. Why should he bother with such a short-sighted person? Have a good weekend. Have fun. Tang Gua had only taken 2 steps when she heard Fu Yanji's blessings. She clearly felt that he was unhappy just now, so why did he sound so happy now? She turned around and saw Fu Yanji looking straight at her. His expression was still cold and indifferent, but the focus in his eyes made her waver. She was so obedient. Was she trying to seduce her? Me too. She really didn't know what kind of weird things that guy was imagining in his head to make himself so happy in just a few seconds. The system, who had witnessed all of this, felt a little stifled, if it had a heart. Why did he always feel that this world was filled with malice? Tang Guo went back to her dormitory to change her clothes. When she arrived at the school gate, Zhang Xing was already waiting for her. Seeing her come out, Zhang Xing gave her a bouquet of very beautiful roses, causing the surrounding girls to cover their mouths and scream. Do you like it? It's beautiful. Tang Guo hugged the roses and smiled beautifully. When she got into the car, she felt a gaze from a certain direction. She turned around and looked. The building was very tall and it was very far from here. At the top of the stairs, there seemed to be a dark figure looking in her direction. Peek. Chapter 2099. Young master, if you like, you can really snatch her back. The old butler saw that Fu Yanji was staring in a certain direction for a long time. The young lady had already left in the car. What was the point of looking at her here? If he wanted her, he had to snatch her back. That was how it was portrayed on TV. Even though she might not like young master was so outstanding that the young lady would definitely be moved by him one day. The butler smiled happily at the thought of young master obtaining a beautiful romance in the future. That would be a wonderful scene. That young lady was the only girl that young master could get close to without causing any adverse reactions. Moreover, young master seemed to like her very much. From his point of view, this was fate, the kind that couldn't be separated. Young master, if you don't want to be the bad guy, I'll do it. In the future, if the young lady asks, I'll tell her that young master doesn't know anything. Young master couldn't bear to hurt her and it was me who acted on my own accord. I couldn't bear to see young master alone in the future. For the sake of this old man's good intentions, and for the sake of my age, she will definitely be touched and choose to forgive. She won't blame young master. Fu Yanji, actually, there's another way. I'll snatch her back and young master will let her go. Her impression of you will only improve. Then, I'll continue snatching her and young master will continue to let her go. The plot will then become a battle of wits between young master and the young lady, and I, the evil butler, will reap the rewards of your romance. In the end, everyone will know that I'm doing this for young master's sake and there will be a happy ending. Before the old butler could finish his sentence, he heard Fu Yanji on the phone. Yes, the butler has been spouting nonsense recently. I suspect that he's old and has some mental problems. Dr. Chin, please come over and check the butler's body. His symptoms are that he wants to snatch the young lady every day and even acts like an evil butler, the old butler. He wasn't sick. He was doing this for young master's sake. Why did young master misunderstand his efforts? At night, Fu Yanji received a message. Looking at the photo, his good mood was swept away. He sent a text over. Keep an eye on her and stop her if anything happens. However, he couldn't let his guard down. Even if she was mysterious enough, she seemed to be very powerful. At this time, Tang Guo and Zhang Xing were in a high-end restaurant. He was pouring her red wine, and everything was the same as before. Under the dim light, Zhang Xing was looking at Tang Guo strangely. His eyes were passionate, excited, and even a little impatient. Even though Zhang Xing's actions were secretive, Tang Guo still discovered that he had drugged her wine glass. The two of them were already engaged and were family friends. Who would have thought that Zhang Xinghui would tamper with her wine glass in front of everyone when she wasn't paying attention? Ordinary people wouldn't care about this at all. They just needed to distract the other party for a moment. Moreover, this was a high-end restaurant. Every seat had a cubicle, and the situation inside could not be seen from other seats. While Tang Guo was busy ordering, Zhang Xing was pouring wine for her. In any case, Zhang Xing was determined to take advantage of him today. With such a beautiful fiancée, wouldn't it be a loss if that Bradley fan took advantage of her in the future? Seeing that Tang Guo had finished all the red wine, Zhang Xing became more and more excited. Vertex. Chapter 2100. Just as Fu Yanji was about to rest, he received a message. When he opened it, he saw Zhang Xing helping the blushing Tang Guo get into the car. All his sleepiness disappeared in an instant. He dialed the driver's number. Prepare the car. Although things seemed strange, how could she be drunk when she was so smart? Seeing such a situation, Fu Yanji couldn't calm down. When Fu Yanji arrived at the door of a room in the hotel, Tang Guo was standing there unscathed. Seeing this, he heaved a sigh of relief and walked up to her quickly. He asked coldly, "Are you all right? You sent someone to follow me?" Tang Guo asked with a smile. Fu Yanji was a little helpless, but he quickly reacted and said seriously, "After all, I still have to rely on you and protect your safety. As long as Li Fan is in the country, my Fu family won't be able to bring him back safely. That thing of his is too powerful." "That's a good reason." Tang Guo didn't pursue this matter. She already knew that Fu Yanji had sent someone to follow her. She didn't reject it, which meant that she tacitly agreed. System, Bad woman, look at how you scared the innocent young master. Fu Yanji heard no movement in the room and his expression darkened. What's going on? Nothing. Tang Guo had planned to do something, but she didn't expect Fu Yanji to come so quickly. System, I'm worried about you. How can I not come? Fu Yanji didn't ask much and only said, "Are you going back to school or home?" "Let's go back to school." At this time, Tang Guo didn't want to go home. When Zhang Xing reacted, she didn't know what he would do. But that wasn't important. Zhang Xing was still useful now. After all, Li Fan still had to use the Zhang family to restrain her. Fu Yanji and Tang Guo sat in the back of the car. He didn't say much but kept playing with his phone. When the matter was settled, the corners of his lips curled up subconsciously. Tang Guo noticed and glanced at him. He quickly stopped smiling. It's better not to go out alone at this time. Even if it's someone you know, they might do something to you. He knew that his arrival might have prevented her from teaching Zhang Xing a lesson. Then, he would help her teach him a lesson. Anyway, it was fine as long as he didn't die, right? If she wasn't powerful, she would be the one at a disadvantage. He had found several women for Zhang Xing who could satisfy him. He should be able to have a good time tonight. He hoped that Zhang Xing would suddenly wake up and not bully girls like Tang Guo in the future. Zhang Xing brought the drunk Tang Guo to the hotel and booked a room. He thought that he would be able to do something wonderful immediately, but when he came out of the bathroom, he saw Tang Guo awake at the door. At that time, he felt that something was wrong, but when he thought of Li Fan's specious words, he felt that his head was green. Since he was already here, he naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. How much strength could a little girl have? Being able to endure for so many days was already his limit. If she did not provoke Li Fan, he would still respect her. However, he underestimated Tang Guo. When he was about to fight, Tang Guo knocked him out with a punch. When Zhang Xing woke up, he felt that something was wrong. He kept feeling that something was touching his body. When he opened his eyes, he saw a few fat women around 40 or 50 years old sitting around him with excited smiles. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. His mouth was sealed. Host, you don't have to regret that you didn't teach Zhang Xing a lesson. Your cutie has arranged a crazy banquet for him. The system blabbered. Tang Guo, peek. Chapter 2101. The next day, Tang Guo received a call from Zhang Xing. Zhang Xing was flustered and exasperated, as if he wanted to eat her up. It's Li Fan, right? It must be Li Fan. You two have been together for a long time, you shameless woman. Zhang Xing was in despair. Even though he was a man, he wouldn't lose out in this kind of thing. But when he thought about how he woke up in the morning with a few fat women in their 40s or 50s, he almost vomited. More importantly, these women were all famous rich women in the circle. Some of them were even in charge of big companies. Even if he wanted to do something, it was impossible. While he was in a daze, these rich women looked at him like wolves and almost ate him up. Sisters, let's go. There's still a meeting in the morning. I still have to go for a beauty treatment. I almost missed the time. Let's go. Anyway, we've already taken a lot of photos. If this kid dares to shout, I'll peel off a layer of his skin. But this soft skin and tender flesh taste pretty good. Zhang Xing was so angry that his eyeballs almost popped out. He swallowed a mouthful of blood. He knew these rich women. Because he knew them, he could only break his teeth and endure the pain. Li Fan. It's Li Fan again. At this time, Li Fan didn't know that he had taken the blame for Fu Yanji. Even though he knew that Li Fan was very powerful, Zhang Xing couldn't take it lying down. As he put on his clothes, he was thinking about how to teach Li Fan a lesson. Li Fan, who was hugging left and right, didn't know Zhang Xing's anger at all. During the weekend, Fu Yanji was in a good mood when he saw Tang Guo coming to the library. Sure enough, this person had to be under his nose to be at ease. This morning, Zhang Xing called and scolded me. Tang Guo looked up and said to Fu Yanji inadvertently, the scolding was especially unpleasant. My good mood this morning was ruined. Fu Yanji's expression stiffened. Then, he said naturally, Zhang Xing is not a good person. Why don't you break off the engagement? If necessary, I can help you. He's not a good person. You should have understood yesterday. And that book also wrote that he's unreliable. Since I'm begging you to treat my illness, I'll definitely protect you in the future. I won't let anyone bully you. Fu Yanji felt that this was a great excuse and hoped that he wouldn't recover so quickly. Zhang Xing originally planned to break off the engagement, but after thinking about it carefully, if he broke off the engagement, wouldn't that be helping Li Fan and that slut? He couldn't break off the engagement. Not only could he not break it off, he had to make Li Fan be like him and wear a green hat. Li Fan had so many women, he would definitely be able to find one. Zhang Xing managed to seize the opportunity after asking his men to spy on him for a few days. Zhang Xing did not dare to touch those with strong backgrounds. In the end, he chose Miao Han. Miao Han's family background was not bad, but it was far worse than the Zhang family. Even if Miao Han and Li Fan lived outside, she would still participate in some other activities. Therefore, most of the time, he didn't return to school with Li Fan. Zhang Xing didn't plan to show himself either. Instead, he stood behind the scenes and arranged for people to take Miao Han away and carry out his orders. He thought that it was impossible for Li Fan to know about such a plan. After all, he had never appeared before. But he underestimated Li Fan's strength. Li Fan used the mysterious thing in the system to track down the mastermind behind this matter, Zhang Xing. Long before this, he had already given his woman something to protect herself. Those people naturally didn't succeed. In the end, Zhang Xing was dragged out by Li Fan and he personally crippled Zhang Xing with a kick. Peak. Chapter 2102. Zhang Xing screamed in pain as he glared at Li Fan, as if he wanted to eat him up. Li Fan glanced at him coldly and gently hugged Miao Han. If you dare to touch my woman, then you must be able to bear the price. The Zhang family doesn't need to exist anymore. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame the Zhang family for having Zhang Xing who dared to touch my woman. Miao Han was naturally extremely touched. Apart from other things, Li Fan was indeed good to his women. This was also the reason why those women were willing to follow him. In just 2 days, Tang Guo received a call from her family. It was from her mother. Xiao Guo, the Zhang family is bankrupt. Zhang Xing has become a cripple and is still lying unconscious in the hospital. It was Li Fan who did it. He even said that anyone who dares to interfere in the Zhang family's matters is going against him. Zhang Xing has taken action against Li Fan's woman. Your father and I are discussing and planning to break off the engagement. You don't have any objections, right? No. Tang Guo paused. This was outside of her expectations. Was Zhang Xing's brain stuffed with bean dregs? Li Fan was someone he could provoke. He clearly knew that Li Fan's reverse scale was women. His brother actually went to provoke him. If he didn't suffer, who would? Mom, how's the project with the Zhang family going? At the critical moment, the funds can still last for 10 days. Because of Li Fan's words, no one dares to interfere. Mother Tang's voice was also a little tired. Who hadn't heard of Li Fan? How did the Zhang family provoke Li Fan? That brat was no different from a mad dog when dealing with people. How could she know the reason behind this? At the same time, she was also glad that she didn't stake everything with Father Tang and gamble all of her assets. Even if this project failed, they wouldn't end up with nothing. Although it was a little unkind to say this project was participated in by the entire shareholders. It was everyone's responsibility. Moreover, this time, the matter happened to the Zhang family. It was the Zhang family who provoked such a fiend. The responsibility wasn't on the husband and wife. Even so, the loss to them was huge. Now, the shareholders had already decided whether or not they could let Li Fan invest in it. This project was very profitable and they thought that Li Fan wouldn't refuse. Father Tang was the company's CEO, so he had to talk to Li Fan about this matter. Why should I invest in this project? Do I, Li Fan, still lack money? Li Fan looked at Father Tang with a smile on his lips. You should go find someone else. I'm not interested in this project. Director Li, why don't you think about it? Our company's people have already discussed it. If Mr. Li is willing, everything can be discussed. Father Tang didn't know that Li Fan had once taken a fancy to his daughter, the kind that he couldn't get and was even despised. Li Fan had already been pursued and liked by women. Every time Tang Guo gave him a cold face, how could he stand it? If it was the original Li Fan, he would only complain in his heart before turning around and leaving. But the current Li Fan was different. He could be considered to be in control of two very powerful companies, and basically everyone was afraid of him. He had suffered losses in the hands of a woman over and over again. Moreover, Zhang Xing had provoked him and even threatened that even if he hooked up with Tang Guo, he would only pick up her leftovers. How could Li Fan endure this? That was why he tormented Zhang Xing so much. He wanted to let that high and mighty young Miss Tang Guo see how miserable her fiancé, Zhang Xing, was. In front of Li Fan, Zhang Xing was worse than a dog. His woman's dog cost at least 100,000 a month. Peak. Chapter 2103. Is there really anything to discuss? Li Fan had already asked someone to keep an eye on the Zhang family's family Tang, so he could receive news from them at any time. After all, he had made up his mind to not let the Zhang family make a comeback. The family Tang had already broken off the engagement with the Zhang family. He heard that Zhang Xing was very crazy in the hospital, shouting that he would not agree no matter what. In the end, the family Tang took out a few photos, leaving Zhang Xing speechless. It was said that those photos were of Zhang Xing and a few rich women in the circle. He was a little curious and asked someone to bring some photos back to look at. He almost vomited. He really didn't expect that Zhang Xing, who had such a beautiful fiancé like Tang Guo, would actually have such a strong taste. He was really a ruthless person to play with a few rich women. He even suspected that the reason why the Zhang family could be where they were today was because Zhang Xing, this gigolo, had paid the price of selling his butt. Although he mocked him, Li Fan did not forget his purpose. Now, he was not afraid of anything and did as he pleased. He only wanted to get what he wanted. From the moment he came to this school, he was attracted to Tang Guo at first sight. He also felt it. At first glance, Tang Guo did not seem to like him. That was because Senior Tang did not understand him. When she understood him, she would know that he was not bad. I wonder what President Li's conditions are. Father Tang was not a fool. It was impossible for him to agree without mentioning the conditions. This time, Li Fan's smile was gentler, and his body was less arrogant. I heard that Senior Tang has already broken off the engagement with Zhang Xing. I have always had Senior Tang in my heart. If she... Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Father Tang. Impossible, don't even think about it. It was no secret how many women Li Fan had. He had lived for more than half his life and had never seen such an arrogant young man. However, the other party had too many trump cards and no one could control him. He represented the company to discuss business matters with Li Fan, not to sell his daughter. The company did not belong to him alone. It belonged to everyone. If he really had to sell his daughter to keep this project and recover the losses, he would rather give up. Even if he had to exhaust all his efforts for the past few decades, he would not be willing to sacrifice his daughter. Even if Li Fan was very powerful and the families of the women who followed him were becoming more and more prosperous, he would not do this. Boss Tang doesn't have any sincerity, then. Before Li Fan could finish, he was interrupted by Father Tang. There was anger in Father Tang's eyes. I also think there's no need to discuss this matter. With that, he turned around and left. Li Fan was a little annoyed and quickly said, Boss Tang, no one dares to interfere with that project now. Your desperate gamble will bring a huge crisis to your company. Maybe you won't be Boss Tang in the future. It's better to be a beggar than to sell one's daughter. Mr. Li, since we're not on the same page, goodbye. Father Tang was unmoved by force or persuasion, so Li Fan really had no other choice. This was different from what he had imagined. Even the principal of the school didn't object to his relationship with Su Shiling after knowing of his ability. He even smiled at him. Many of his father-in-law were amiable and polite to him. When they knew that he had taken a fancy to their daughter, they were all very happy. They weren't like Father Tang, who acted as if he was going to eat Tang Gua. In his opinion, this was the unhappiness of family Tang people. As expected, this daughter and father were the same. I heard that you and Zhang Xing have broken off the engagement. Fu Yanji asked casually. Peak. Chapter 2104. Tang Guo raised her eyes and nodded with a smile, and he didn't want to and went crazy in the hospital. My father threw an envelope of photos to him. The Zhang couple couldn't afford to lose face and agreed. She hadn't told Father Tang and Mother Tang that Zhang Xing was planning to do something to her. Otherwise, the two of them wouldn't be so calm. The matter had already passed, so it was better not to talk about it, lest her parents get angry and hurt their bodies. Zhang Xing had already received enough of a lesson. Li Fan pressured your father to agree to a condition and let you follow him. Only then will he invest in that project. At present, no one dares to interfere in this matter. Oh. Seeing that Tang Guo's reaction was calm, she even slowly drank a glass of water. The heat from the water floated to her face, making her face even more delicate. Fu Yanji wanted to take a closer look, but felt that it was impolite, so he quickly shifted his gaze away uncomfortably. If necessary, I can invest in that project for free, no conditions. In the end, he added, I still have to rely on you. Tang Guo was about to go crazy from laughing in her heart. This guy had also met her. If it was someone else, wouldn't he be the second male lead? He didn't care about anything, it was free, he didn't want money. In this world, free things were the least cherished and the easiest to trample on. Do I look like I'm short of money? Fu Yanji came back to his senses and shook his head, no. He brought it up just to help her, we can be considered grasshoppers on the same rope, right? System, not only on the same rope, but also in the same nest. Then don't waste money. The Tang Group is no longer the Tang Group of the family Tang. Let's wait and see how the shareholders react. Fu Yanji was not a fool. On the contrary, he was very smart and instantly understood what she meant. She was not short of money. If she wanted to save this project, she could throw in a sum of money herself. Those people who were picked up by her for charity were all doing well now. He didn't know what she gave them, or if it was as good as the business plans in Li Fan's hands. In any case, the development was very fast, as if they had already investigated the local market and understood all the needs clearly. As long as she said a word, not to mention a mere project, even 10 projects would not be a problem. The shareholders in the company forced her to agree to Li Fan. Although there were some discrepancies, Zhang Xing was not that miserable. But Zhang Xing deserved it. He didn't sympathize at all, and he even felt a faint sense of pleasure. This time, he didn't know what the shareholders would do. When are you going to treat me? Fu Yanji. Of course, his treatment wasn't to get close to the opposite sex. Every time, he couldn't walk in the crowd. The slightest touch of the opposite sex on his clothes would make his body feel uncomfortable. Tang Guo looked at him with a faint smile. You seem to be very eager. I'm afraid that someone will use this method to attack me. It will cause my body to feel uncomfortable. After all, the entire Fu family needs me. Fu Yanji was stunned. The system thought that if he had a body, he would be rolling on the ground laughing. Fu Yanji stretched out his hand. His fingers were fair and slender. They were very good-looking. Under his incredulous gaze, Tang Guo reached out and held his hand. Her small hand was warm and gave him a different feeling. Fu Yanji stared at the two of them holding hands without blinking. Chapter 2105. How do you feel? Tang Guo leaned closer and asked. Fu Yanji's ears instantly turned red, and the blood vessels in his somewhat transparent ear flaps could be seen clearly. Pretty good. Fu Yanji answered seriously. You're indeed my medicine. I don't feel any discomfort at all. Your hands are so warm. Seeing such an adorable fellow, Tang Guo couldn't help but stroke his head with her other hand. Fu Yanji looked at her affectionately. She explained, if you interact more, you won't have to be afraid of the opposite sex in the future. Your illness will naturally be cured. System, Fu Yanji, run. You've met a weird auntie. Okay. Fu Yanji pursed his lips and didn't refute. Then you should interact more with me. He retracted his gaze. Treating illnesses was pretty good. After hearing this, Tang Guo didn't stand on ceremony anymore. She stroked Fu Yanji's head and pinched his face. Fu Yanji didn't resist and just sat there like an obedient child. Who could resist such an obedient child? The old butler had wanted to call Fu Yanji over for dinner. But when he walked to the corner of a bookshelf, he caught sight of the two of them and his eyes widened in shock. He quickly hid behind the bookshelf and peeked his head out to take a look. The shock and joy in his eyes almost made him jump with joy. Then, he left quietly. It was no wonder that young master didn't agree with his method. Young master had a better method of his own. When it was time for dinner, Tang Guo finally let go of Fu Yanji and decided to go for dinner first. After placing the book back on the shelf, the two of them walked out tacitly. Even though they didn't verbally agree, it was as though they were going for dinner together. When they reached the door, Fu Yanji held on to Tang Guo's hand and said, holding hands can cure illnesses. Tang Guo raised her head and looked at him, causing him to feel uncomfortable. Wasn't this a little too fast? Wouldn't she dislike him for taking advantage of her when she was sick? At the thought of this, he was extremely conflicted and wanted to let go of her hand. He really didn't want to do that. Then, Tang Guo said, why don't we hug each other? We'll be closer if we hug each other. System, host, you're really shameless to the extreme this time. Fu Yanji was stunned as well, but he reacted quickly. Tang Guo let go of her hand and put her arm around her shoulders. She smiled and said, that seems to be the case. I feel much better. There was a smile in Tang Guo's eyes. This guy. She even suspected that the other party had deliberately chosen such a body to take advantage of her and gain her sympathy. Speaking of which, it was strange. No matter if it was her or him, no one could tell that their souls and bodies were not compatible with each other. Instead, they were very compatible, as if this was their body in the first place. She would often laugh at this matter. If this was their body, then who was the soul in the past? Fu Yanji held on to Tang Gua as they walked to the restaurant. They really looked like a couple. When they arrived at the dining room, Fu Yanji took the initiative to pull out a chair for her and helped her with everything. Even though he had never done such things before, he had done a lot of homework in this area recently and had read all the tutorials seriously. When the waiter came over to take his order, he approached him and handed him the menu. Fu Yanji's face was still as pale as a sheet. Peek. Chapter 2106. Fu Yanji finally understood that he still couldn't get close to the opposite sex if they got too close to him. Once they got too close, it would cause his body to feel uncomfortable. This was also the reason why he rarely ate outside. Basically, whenever he ate outside, it would be arranged by the old butler so that no one of the opposite sex would appear around him. This time, the old butler was very tactful and didn't care about anything. In his opinion, it was enough as long as there was a girl that young master liked. Tang Guo saw Fu Yanji's pale face and told the waiter to pass the menu to her and let the waiter do his work first. Then, she moved the chair to Fu Yanji's side. Fu Yanji's handsome face was pale and he looked at her with a pitiful gaze. Although she knew that this fellow was not so innocent and might be a wolf cub, she still touched his head and held his hand, asking softly, "What do you want to eat?" In just half a minute, Fu Yanji's face regained its color and he held her hand tightly. "Don't move back. Just sit here and eat. My illness got worse just now." This sentence almost meant that he couldn't leave her and had to hold her hand all the time in order to survive. System, ah, heavens, these two shameless bastards are together. All right. Fu Yanji heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was a little shameless, she didn't seem to dislike him. He even let her touch his head. He washed his hair every day and even knew how to do it. It should feel good to the touch. Tang Guo didn't know what Fu Yanji was thinking, but if she didn't keep such a cute boy in her pocket, she would really be letting down this world. She even said to the system, "Take a photo of me holding hands with Fu Yanji and send it to the group." System, fuck, host, you're really too much. Even so, the system still did as she asked and took a photo of the dining table and where they were holding hands. Sighing, it sent the photo to the group. Indeed, when the photo was sent to the group, it caused a huge commotion. Mist Fairy, seems like the school belle has met her boyfriend again. Ziyun, that boy is really lucky to have caught my sister's eye. Mo Yuntian, he's also very shameless. No matter where he goes, he's always by the girl's side. Margaret, perhaps, this is true love. Even curses can't stop it. When Yahweh, who was in the midst of filming, also saw the photo of Tang Guo in the group chat, which was posted by the system in the group chat. When Yahweh, is the campus belle in love? She had been in this group for more than a year now. In this group, she gained true friends. These friends all came from very mysterious planes. Some of them were immortal cultivators, some of them knew magic, and some of them were from the future. Even though they were different from ordinary people, they were really approachable. They didn't look down on an ordinary person like her at all. Instead, they gave her a lot of help. She didn't have anything rare to give them in return. She could only buy some food and some of the world's recognized luxury goods for them. And the things they gave her were really too precious and too practical. She felt embarrassed every time they gave her something like this. Margaret, for example, had given her all kinds of charms, both good and bad. The bad ones had been locked up by her, and she didn't want to use them unless it was absolutely necessary. Instead, she liked good luck charms and charms that could instantly increase her strength. Previously, when they were filming a reality show in the wild, they encountered a problem. She used the good luck charms and successfully helped the people with her to avoid the flash flood. Peak. Chapter 2107. Later, when she was exhausted, she used the power talisman that Margaret gave her to fill her body with energy. However, she could only walk out alone and could not bring anyone with her. Only then did she ask for help from the people in the group. Ziyun sent her a pill that could be used by mortals. He even asked her if there were any pills that could replenish energy in this world and made them look like energy pills for her. The effect was not outstanding, but after eating it, people would slowly recover. Relying on her bottle of energy pills, the people who got separated from the crew finally walked out without any injuries. Everyone thought it was a miracle. This matter was kept secret. After all, her fans were crazy. If it was revealed, it would easily anger them. Now, she just wanted to be a good actress and did not want to be on the hot search list every day. Since the day her face was disfigured, she had been on the hot search list enough. On the other hand, she was secretly investigating who caused the accident that seemed to be an accident and how they got separated from the reality show. Could it be that that person had infiltrated her side? When Yahweh looked at the photo and could not help but ask, is the school bell also in the modern world? In this group, she knew that there were many parallel universes. Even if this looked like a modern restaurant, it might not be in the same world as her. She did not delve into this and was just asking. The system answered on behalf of Tanghua, then didn't say anything. The people in the group were used to it. When Yahweh was also very busy. Just now, she was only looking at her phone while she was resting. She put her phone away and had to continue filming. When Yahweh also found that the people around her were discussing something enthusiastically. When they saw her, they hurriedly greeted her. She asked casually, "What are you all talking about?" "It's Gan Yingying. I heard that she has entered the international market with her sugar daddy. She is currently filming a blockbuster in a certain country. She is also a very important supporting actress and has a lot of scenes. This movie should be released next year. Gan Yingying has really entered the international market." Someone close to Wen Yahweh said, if it weren't for Yahweh's accident, she would be on par with Gan Yingying now. When Yahweh just smiled and said, everyone has their own path. She knew that Gan Yingying had a sugar daddy. In this circle, there were no secrets if you wanted to know anything. It all depended on whether your thigh was thick or not. If it was thick, no one would dare to mess with you. The golden thigh that Gan Yingying was clinging onto was obviously very thick. Because of this, she could get whatever she wanted in the entertainment industry. If it had been in the past, she would have definitely competed with Gan Yingying. But now that she had met with a disaster, she had seen through it all. She did not care about these things anymore. Acting was what she liked. It was actually not bad to take advantage of the current situation to change her style and become a real actress. Seeing that when Yahweh didn't care, everyone stopped talking about it. They only thought that Gan Yingying was lucky. Actually, Li Fan is also not bad. Boss Tang, I think that agreeing to his suggestion and being able to keep this project is also a good thing. With the in-laws, this project will be stable. Not only was it stable, but with Li Fan as a big tree, his future was simply limitless. She was just a daughter. She was meant for a marriage alliance. They didn't understand what Father Tang was thinking. When Father Tang heard these words, he was so angry that he took a deep breath. Was that an in-laws relationship? Not to mention whether his daughter liked Li Fan or not, there were countless women by Li Fan's side. None of them had any status. To put it nicely, they were his lovers. To put it bluntly, they were his playthings. Father Tang's face darkened. I won't agree. Boss Tang, no one dares to invest in this project now. Our capital chain is about to break. Father Tang raised his eyelids and said calmly, why don't you send your twins to Li Fan? I don't think he will object. Also, don't you have a daughter who is taking the PhD exam? She is beautiful and cultured. Li Fan will definitely not refuse. Manager Chen, you have a niece who has been staying at your house for many years, right? Send them all over. Anyway, you guys don't object. Send them over together. Li Fan will definitely agree to this project. I think it's fine too. After saying that, Father Tang looked at everyone's ashen faces and was in a very good mood. These dogs only knew how to bully his precious daughter. Peak. Chapter 2108. No matter what, Father Tang didn't relent. The shareholders couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't really kidnap Tang Gua and send her to Li Fan, right? Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't dare. If they really angered Father Tang, they wouldn't have a good ending. Then, they could only pressure Father Tang and Mother Tang. Even Tang Gua's uncle found Tang Gua and explained the pros and cons to her, as well as the difficulties the company was facing. If they didn't invest in it, the project would fail. At that time, not only would they not be able to get any benefits, they would also suffer a lot of losses. At that time, the entire Tang group might shrink greatly. At present, the outside world had vaguely heard that the Tang group's capital chain was about to break, and the stock price was falling every day. Uncle, what do you mean? Xiaogua, you've been a good child since you were young. You're a member of the family Tang, and you have a share in the Tang group. Now that we've fallen into this situation, Uncle hopes that you can help us. Tang Gua raised her eyebrows slightly, then what does Uncle plan to let me do? Actually, it's not a difficult matter. You know that Li Fan, right? I heard that he and you are schoolmates, just 1 year younger than you. That young man is amazing, he's quite capable. As the family Tang uncle spoke, he looked at Tang Gua's expression. Seeing that she was still indifferent, he couldn't figure out what she was thinking. But since he had found her today, he definitely had to make things clear. Your parents are now in a terrible state because of the company's matters. I presume you don't know about this, right? That's true, they're afraid that you'll be worried, so they definitely won't tell you about the company's situation. They only hope that you'll be happy like a little princess. But your uncle, I can't stand it anymore. No matter what, your father is my biological brother, and it's really not easy for our Tang group to develop to this point. More than half of this is his hard work. Uncle, what do you want to say? Just say it. Didn't you already break off the engagement with Zhang Xing? Uncle means that Li Fan, that young man, is not bad. I also heard that you have a good relationship with him and can talk to him. Can you see if you can ask him if he can invest in the project we're currently working on? Family Tang eldest uncle did not directly say that he wanted Tang Gua to become Li Fan's person. It could be seen that he still had some brains. He said that the company was in trouble and that father and mother Tang were very worried. She also said that Li Fan could solve this problem, and that Tang Gua knew Li Fan. If it was an ordinary girl, after hearing this, regardless of whether she really hated Li Fan or not, she would definitely look for Li Fan. At that time, whatever conditions she agreed to, it would all be of her own free will, and it would have nothing to do with him. Who would have thought that she would make such a sacrifice for Tangkor? The family Tang's eldest uncle's plan was very good, but unfortunately, Tang Gua did not take the bait. Uncle, I'm not familiar with Li Fan. He's just a playboy. He won't agree to invest just because of my words. How would you know if you don't try? Do you want to see the decline of Tangkor with your own eyes? Seeing that the family Tang's eldest uncle was so anxious, Tang Gua buried her head and smiled. Uncle, actually, for this project, if the shareholders pool together again, it might not be impossible to raise a sum of money to get through. The business under our Tang Group's name is still quite profitable. After these 2 months, we will be able to see the light of dawn. If you place your hopes on me, you might as well go back and find someone to raise the money. Xiaogua, if you really want to leave us in the lurch, your parents will really raise you for nothing. Peak. Chapter 2109. The angry look of Family Tang's uncle did not move Tanggua. She thought of something and sat down again. Seeing the other party become eager, she couldn't help but laugh. Uncle, I have a suggestion. Maybe we can make Li Fan agree to invest in that project. When the time comes, it might be a double blessing. What idea? At that moment, Family Tang's uncle really thought that Tanggua was going to give him an idea, so the way he looked at her was much gentler. Unexpectedly, Tanggua opened her mouth and said, Li Fan is a dissolute person and loves beauties the most. My 2 cousins are only a little older than me and haven't had a boyfriend yet, right? I remember that they are all very beautiful. Why don't you let your cousin and the others give it a try? Li Fan cherishes beauties the most. When the time comes, with a wave of his hand, investing in a mere project won't hurt him at all. Family Tang's uncle's face turned red. Just as he was about to jump up and curse, Tanggua turned around and left quickly. When she reached the door, she said, Uncle, if you really have no way out, this idea is really not bad. But I have to remind Uncle that this matter still depends on whether my cousins agree or not. If they don't agree, don't force it. If you agree, it would really be a wonderful thing. From now on, first Uncle will also be able to get on Li Fan's good side. Why not? Family Tang's uncle was almost angered to death. Was Li Fan a good man? There were countless women around him. If he really had the heart to sell his daughter, he would have sent her over long ago. His daughter grew up in the palm of his hand. It was absolutely impossible to send her to Li Fan as a plaything. The matter of Family Tang's uncle looking for Tanggua quickly spread to the ears of Father Tang and Mother Tang. The 2 of them found Family Tang's uncle and quarreled with him. The 2 families could be considered to have completely fallen out. These dogs want me to sell my daughter. Why don't they wash their own daughter and send her over? If this knife doesn't cut their bodies, they won't know pain. Old Tang, let me tell you, if you dare to let go and let Xiaogua find that bastard Li Fan, I will fight you to the death. Mrs. Tang said fiercely, don't count your blessings. If you dare mistreat my Xiaogua, I'll chop you up with a knife in the middle of the night. Father Tang was so frightened that he quickly hugged Mother Tang and comforted her. It's been half a lifetime. Don't you know what kind of person I am? Don't worry. Xiaogua is our precious baby. How could I bear to part with him? Even if I have nothing, I won't sell my daughter. That's more like it. I didn't misjudge you. No matter what happens in the future, as long as our family is well, I will always be by your side. The old couple suddenly became emotional, as if igniting the fire of their former love. After a long while, Father Tang sighed, that Li Fan is somewhat against Xiaogua. I don't know how to pass this calamity. If I insist on not agreeing, based on that bastard's character, I'm afraid he'll think of other ways to pressure us. At worst, we can just give up on all of this. The things in our hands are enough for Xiaogua to worry about for the rest of his life. Mother Tang had already thought about it. If Li Fan really wanted the Tang family to have a hard time, he would definitely want her daughter. With the shareholders forcing her, she would rather not have the Tang family. Father Tang's eyes darkened. Let's wait a little longer. If they don't change their attitude and Li Fan continues, I think I will deal with this matter. Easily withdrawing from the Tang family was not his style. Peak. Chapter 2110. How much longer do we have to wait? Fu Yanji and Tanggua sat together. Even though they were reading, his left hand was still holding on to Tanggua's right hand. He was already used to holding her hand. Sometimes, when she wasn't around, he wasn't used to reading alone. He seemed to have forgotten his original intention of holding her hand. Now, he didn't want to recover at all. He was asking about Li Fan's matter. Now that Tang Corporation was in danger, if they didn't continue to invest in that project, the project could only be suspended. Even if it was suspended for a day, the impact would be huge. My uncle also came to look for me yesterday. Tang Guo repeated Uncle Tang's words with a cold smile on her lips. Fu Yanji's expression turned cold as he heard her say, since that's the case, then let's leave it at that. I think my parents have thought it through very clearly and don't care that much about the current Tang Corporation. Although this is indeed the result of their hard work for most of their lives, I will give them something better in the future. Fu Yanji almost said that he could also give them something. If the two of them didn't mind, he could give them a company bigger than Tang Corporation. As for his motive, he was silent for a moment as he glanced at the beautiful lady beside him. His motive was naturally to please her. Yes, that was it. Tang Guo suddenly felt that something was wrong. She looked up and saw Fu Yanji smiling alone. She really didn't know what he was so happy about. She didn't know what he was thinking about that made him so happy again. You're so happy. Are you feeling better? Fu Yanji replied obediently, I don't know yet. Then do you want to go out and try? Fu Yanji was looking forward to it. He had never really gone shopping before. After all, there were many females who liked to go shopping. When it was crowded, it was inevitable that they would bump into each other. The two of them put the books back on the bookshelf and walked out of the school gate hand in hand. Looking at the people coming and going, Fu Yanji directly hugged her in his arms and said seriously, I think it's safer this way. If anything happens to me, please take me away from the crowd. Okay. Tang Guo saw the thin, red, and transparent ears of the other party and pursed her lips into a smile. She didn't expose his clumsy lie. She was so silly and adorable. Fu Yanji didn't sense her objection and hugged her even tighter. When she wasn't paying attention, he exhaled gently. The way the two of them hugged each other on the street really looked like a couple. Even though it was winter, the onlookers felt warm looking at the handsome man and beautiful woman. No one suspected that they were a couple. System, they were originally a couple. No, they should be an old married couple. However, they had always been so intimate with each other that he was flustered. Oh, no, he was already stupid. He was just a system. How could he have a heart? The old butler secretly stood at the school gate and watched the scene of his young master hugging the little girl with a smile on his face. Young master was indeed a genius. No wonder he didn't like his rotten idea. If he had really followed his idea, the two of them would probably be deeply in love. But young master's method was different. From the beginning, it was as sweet as honey. From now on, it would definitely be as sweet as honey. In this lifetime, it would definitely be as sweet as honey. It had only been a short while, and he was already hugging her waist. The old butler raised his head and looked at the dazzling sun, thinking that the weather today was really good. Although he was a little worried about young master, with that little girl around, young master would definitely be fine. Senior Tang, it's really been a long time. Peak. Chapter 21:11. Li Fan didn't think that he would meet Tang Guo on the street. Furthermore, he saw her hugging another stranger. This scene stung his eyes and made him lose face. Li Fan kept staring at Fu Yanji. Only Fu Yanji could understand the hostility in his eyes. He didn't show any signs of weakness. His cold and indifferent gaze lightly landed on Li Fan's body, causing Li Fan to feel uncomfortable all over. Fu Yanji's unique temperament could only be learned from growing up in a good family. It was something that others couldn't learn. Whether it was Fu Yanji's appearance, height, or temperament, they all made Li Fan feel a sense of inferiority. It was as if no matter what he did or how powerful he was, he couldn't compare to this seemingly cold youth in front of him. In front of the other party, he had the feeling that he was a country bumpkin. This feeling was naturally not good. But he quickly reacted. Right now, he was the only one who could wear sneakers and even canvas shoes to the banquet. In the beginning, when he went to some banquets, he was mocked by countless rich second generations for not wearing formal clothes and only wearing sportswear and casual shoes. In the end, these people were still slapped in the face by him. Until now, everyone had tacitly agreed that he, Li Fan, was different. No matter what he wore to the high-end banquet, no one dared to mock him. In front of him, all of them were like grandsons. "Is this senior sister Tang's boyfriend?" Li Fan asked with a smile. "I've never seen him before." His mind was also quickly trying to recall Fu Yanji's name. Unfortunately, ever since he made a name for himself, he rarely went to the library. He spent most of his time in the villa hanging out with his women or looking at his women with careers. Naturally, he didn't know that Fu Yanji was in the library every day. "My name is Li Fan." "Fu Yanji." "Fu Yanji." Li Fan narrowed his eyes. He was unfamiliar with this name, but this didn't mean that he couldn't find out the other party's information. In a short period of time, Li Fan separated a bit of his mind and immersed himself in the system space. There were all kinds of items he bought inside. Some of the items he bought from the system store could be taken out and used, while some couldn't. He found a rectangular machine in the corner that looked like a phone and entered the name Fu Yanji on the screen. At that moment, something surprising happened. All of Fu Yanji's information was displayed on it. At the same time, Li Fan didn't know that the system had already connected to the system space and told Tang Guo what he had seen. There are quite a lot of things inside, but many of them have limited uses. Even if Li Fan bought it, once the number of times he used it up, the item would turn gray and he would never be able to buy it again. In any case, the system was implying that the system store was not high level, even if there were a lot of different types. After Li Fan found out who Fu Yanji was, he bid farewell to Tang Guo and left. When he looked at Fu Yanji, his eyes were filled with provocation. He's gone overboard. He actually wants to touch the host's cutie. "Host, get him." Tang Guo's lips curved. "Okay, deal with him. That person seems to be up to no good." Fu Yanji whispered to Tang Guo, "Is it because of his system store? I have a feeling that at that moment, he seemed to know everything about me." "System, what kind of intuition is this? It's really amazing." Tang Guo wrapped her arms around Fu Yanji's waist. "Don't worry, with me here, he won't hurt you." "Fu Yanji, it's a little strange." Peek. Chapter 21:12. Li Fan first put pressure on the Tang family, and at the same time, sent people to a certain country. This country was the headquarters of the Fu family. The system instantly reported these things to Tang Guo. The last time Li Fan used the system space in front of them, the system had already infiltrated it. After his experiment, he told Tang Guo that he could block the binding between Li Fan and the system space at any time. For this reason, he even showed off in front of Tang Guo. After receiving the praise, he eagerly went to monitor the system space. As soon as possible, seal up some of the things that are too heaven-defying. After all, these things have to be handed over to the country. Things that are too evil are not suitable for this world. For example, high-tech information that is beneficial to the country's development can be left behind. This will help the country become stronger. In fact, with her powerful mental strength, she could also block the connection between Li Fan and the system space, but it would be a little troublesome. With Xiao Tongzi around, it would be much more convenient. As for those strange pills, let's seal them. With more strange energy, it's inevitable that there will be a few more people like Li Fan. Tang Guo was not interested in the things in the system space at all. To be precise, she didn't like them at all. It wasn't that there weren't any good things, but she had better things in her hands. As for the things that Li Fan used, most of them were things that didn't require her to spend any effort on. She wasn't interested in these things. Ready-made things were easy to use, but there would come a day when they would be used up, and they would even hinder her progress. Compared to using ready-made things, she preferred to learn this kind of thing first. Once she learned it, it would be inexhaustible, endless, and endless. The Tang family couldn't stand Li Fan's pressure and once again pressured Father Tang and Mother Tang. At the same time, Li Fan also sent people to a certain country. Without waiting for the results, he called Tang Guo. "Senior Tang, I can help the Tang family get through this difficult time. As for the conditions, you should know." "What is it?" Hearing Tang Guo's calm voice, Li Fan was unhappy. He smiled and didn't care. In any case, she would soon know what despair was. When the Tang family was defeated, she would be a sinner, and her parents would lose everything. He didn't believe that she wouldn't be moved. "Senior Tang, I've liked you for a long time. I have a boyfriend. Fu Yanji." "That's right," Tang Guo admitted. Although the two of them didn't break up their relationship, under the current situation, it was only a matter of time. "But he can't help you, Senior Sister Tang. If he really cared about you, he would have taken action a long time ago. As long as you follow me, I promise to treat you well." He almost said, "Don't be so tactless." "My boyfriend is calling. Sorry, Junior. Bye-bye." When the call was hung up, Li Fan was so angry that his face darkened. He made a phone call and instructed his men to continue dealing with Tang Core. Father Tang and Mother Tang looked at the faces of the shareholders, looked at each other, and finally made a decision. "I would like to resign from my position as the CEO of Tang Core." Amidst the commotion and scolding of Father and Mother Tang, Father Tang's voice silenced the meeting room. "I also choose to resign from my current position in Tang Core." Everyone present thought that they were crazy. However, the two of them were serious. They placed everything they had on the table and walked out of the meeting room hand in hand. At the door, Father Tang turned around and smiled as he said to them, "I sold my shares a few days ago." Without waiting for everyone's astonishment, the two of them walked out of the building with ease. Outside the building, the person waiting was actually Tang Guo. She smiled and said to the two of them, "Dad, Mom, I'm here to pick you up." The two of them felt a warmth in their hearts. Only then did they notice that Tang Guo was holding the hand of a handsome youth. That youth's eyes seemed to be glued to their daughter. Peaked that you're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.